All right, good day, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this webinar today. The topic of the webinar is tools for remote teams that let you keep control of your data and privacy. I am Robert Douglas. I'm the Chief Developer Relationships Officer for Platform.sh, which is a hosting company that can host some of the tools or all of the tools that I will be showing you today. And we are also a completely remote working company from the very beginning of our inception. So we thought that we'd share some of the experiences that we have from being a remote company with people who are now faced with the new reality of having to work from home. You can find me on whatever social media I'm on, for example, Twitter, LinkedIn, at Robert Douglas. And yeah, I mean, let's just start with the reality. With COVID-19, the coronavirus raging around the globe, disrupting economies, many schools and universities and companies, conferences are all moving their meetings online to avoid gathering in person. But a lot of the tools that we have available to facilitate these meetings, such as Slack or G Suite, they put control of your data into the hands of large companies, oftentimes American companies. And this webinar looks at a number of tools that are useful for remote teams that might replace Slack or G Suite or other tools that you use, and put the control of the data and the source code into your own hands. So that's the special distinction of this webinar versus the literally hundreds of other tips and tricks for remote teams articles and webinars that I'm seeing around the internet right now, which is very useful. This webinar focused on things that you run yourself so that you retain that control. The tools actually covered in the webinar include Mattermost, Nextcloud, Restyaboard, and Opigno, or Opigno, I believe. So, right. So gathering in groups, we can't do that right now. No, we can't. Not like this picture, unfortunately. So as teams and organizations start working from home for the first time, and as the schools and universities are moving courses to digital medium and conferences are going virtual, a lot of people are learning now how to succeed in a remote first culture and how to enable the communication and workflows that make their business or organization run in specific ways so that you don't just do what you're accustomed to doing in person in an office setting, but actually adapt to the real new situation and the limitations and advantages that that has. There are a lot of examples. For example, a conversation which would normally happen face-to-face now has to happen either in a chat of some kind or on a phone call or maybe a video conference. Planning that you would normally do on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper together would now require a digital tool that gives everybody web access. And if you're going to teach a course, disseminating coursework or doing a training for, say, new employees, that now needs to happen in a learning management system instead of in a classroom or in a meeting where you say, hey, look over my shoulder, I'll show you how it's done. So you need tools to facilitate all of that. And keep in mind that the transition to remote work has real risks. So I would invite you all to please observe this highly scientific case study of the average office worker in various stages of his journey as a remote worker. The results might be shocking to you, and you don't want this to happen to you and your team. And On the flip side, a lot of people actually depend on the structure of office work to shape their day and structure their time and keep their obsessive tendencies in check, perhaps. So structuring your remote work culture is in fact important, and it takes a degree of planning and mindfulness to get it right. So on the cultural and process front, which I'm not going to discuss, we're actually really lucky that our CEO has written a blog post on the topic. I'll remind you that since its inception in 2012, Platform.sh has been a 100% remote company. We maintain a small office in Paris and a small office in Austin, Texas, both of which are currently closed due to the virus. But we've principally been a remote company, remote first, ever since we started. I see a question coming in. I'm just going to see that. Yes, thank you, Catherine, for putting the link to that in the chat for anybody who wants to go read. I personally have been working remotely for companies since 2004. And I think the Survival Guide is really a good read. It's aimed at managers who might have found themselves in a position to drive their company forward when that company might have become a remote company overnight. And he begins that, yeah, we've built Platform.sh from the ground up as a distributed company, now with 180 employees, almost all of them working from home. And we've spent a lot of time refining the processes, methodologies, communication methods, and tools. So go ahead and give that a read. Now, about the tools I'm going to present to you today. I'm going to focus on self-hosted, so not SaaS, not software as a service, but self-hosted open source tools that give you control over your data and privacy. Now, why am I choosing to focus on data privacy? Well, many organizations don't feel comfortable or are perhaps not even legally allowed to have their business critical data stored by third-party entities. Or specifically, they need their data to stay within a specific country or economic zone, such as the European Union. So for example, it might not be acceptable to some organizations for all of their chat messages to be stored by a company like Slack or Google, which can be a barrier to that company adopting those tools, Slack or G Suite. And they have to turn to other solutions for their mail, documents, video conferencing, and chat. Furthermore, any tools that help facilitate communication for your organization are going to become a repository of valuable information and data for your organization that you will want to have access to. Most or all of the software as a service options in this space will always introduce some friction when it comes to accessing your data. Even if they don't intend to, you still have to depend on them to give you your own data. And no matter what tools they have for that, there is some friction involved. And some of these tools actually introduce a lot of friction. So if accessing your data is important, then you might not be able to depend on a SaaS tool. The exports or even the API might not be complete. It might not offer you the complete raw data that your activities are generating. And if you want it, when you want it and how you want it, then you might need to choose a self-hosted tool to meet those needs. And as for the component of this presentation that deals with open source code, that's an important aspect of your control. So you would want to choose an open source application, a self-hosted application in this case, when you have a need around compliance or auditing, or you have needs around integration, or you have the desire to customize or extend the tool. You might be better off choosing a SaaS tool if you just want to pay the dollars or the euros and have the tool work, even if it has limitations that you have to learn how to work with. And if you don't have an expectation to customize the tool, if that's what you need, then you're way better off choosing a SaaS tool. But if you do need that control, if you do need the customization, the open source options are there for you, and I'm going to discuss them, and you would want to do that. Now, I'll point out that on this slide, I have some benefits at the top, but there is also added effort involved. So when you choose a self-hosted open source tool, you have to take care of the installation, the integrations, the updates, the uptime, the monitoring, backup, disaster recovery. Now, that seems like a lot, but that's actually where a tool like Platform.sh can come in and be helpful. And we essentially can take those things, which will still be your responsibility as a self-hosted tool owner. Those will still be your responsibility, but we can put the tooling behind those to make it a lot easier. And I'm going to show you how. All right. So let's get into the part where I show you some self-hosted open source tools for remote work. But let's start with the pricing page for Slack. And let's talk about Slack for a bit. Slack is the undisputed king in the chat space. And in full disclosure, Platform.sh uses Slack as our day-to-day chat tool, and it's a major part of our working DNA. It lets us have spontaneous human conversations. It makes the workspace feel concrete and personable. But there are a lot of features that we use that also give these conversations structure, that make them searchable, archivable, auditable, shareable. And we have a lot of integrations into other systems that we use, like Jira and Zendesk. And we have a cute little bot that we programmed ourselves called Rosie. And Rosie does all sorts of amazing things, like investigates the health of a website or performs maintenance tasks on those websites. We can use Rosie to open and read support tickets. And we can even use Rosie to start a video conference for us. That just highlights the importance of your chat tool being able to integrate with such bots. So sometimes Slack fails and has outages. That actually has happened numerous times in the past years. And that's why we also self-host a Slack alternative called Mattermost, which is open source software. And it's Mattermost that I want to present to you first as a very interesting tool for your remote work if you need the control and privacy it brings, or if you just can't afford to pay for Slack. And as a comparison point, I calculated on the slide that I'm showing you that you would pay around 3,750 euros a year for a team of 50 using the most basic version of Slack that they offer. And with Mattermost, you would have the option of taking that down to paying $0, albeit you would still need the hosting option, in which case Platform.sh is a viable option. All right, so let's look at Mattermost. What does Mattermost do? So Mattermost is an alternative to Slack, Microsoft Teams, or HipChat, or basically any other chat program that you might be using. So it's got a lot of similarities to Slack. It's got the same channel-based one-to-one and group chat features that you would know from Slack if you've used Slack. It has search, it has file uploads, you can use Markdown, it presents you with emojis. It even has plugins that give you voice calling and video and screen sharing. So essentially, you could use Mattermost to run a whole business, which is really great. It also, of course, comes with a desktop app and a mobile app. So the way that works, and you'll see that in the demo in a bit, is that you set up a Mattermost server and then you use your desktop app or your mobile app to connect to that server by giving in the server's URL, which is just a HTTP-based web URL, like a website. It's also got a web interface that you can use, so you don't need to install anything to use it, just a browser. And that's all very easy and convenient. Very importantly, it integrates with a lot of your favorite tools. It's got plugins and extensions in a repository where you can find vetted, high-quality extensions from third parties. You can also write your own. And it's got a full API, so you can write your own integrations externally if something's missing. really nice. So undoubtedly we could run Rosie on Mattermost as well if we needed to. So here's a screenshot of the integrations store and a URL to that if you want to check that out during or after, preferably after my presentation. But I focused on the bots category, but you can see on the left there, there are all sorts of other categories that are super interesting. And if you self-host Mattermost, then you have dominion over all your data. So the data is stored in a database. There's also a search index. And they have a feature that I didn't really research into very much beyond what kind of encryption is going on. They have a feature that claims that they even protect the leakage of the typical types of metadata that you heard Edward Snowden talking about so much when he was whistleblowing all of the spying that the NSA in America does on telephones communications. So it seems that they've put a great deal of effort into Mattermost in terms of making it end-to-end encrypted, safe, and you control the data. So in addition to being able to just download the database because you're self-hosting, and if you do that on Platform.sh, you've got a one-line command to get a copy of your database exported. In addition to that, you can also have your Mattermost web admins, the people who don't necessarily have access to the server but can administer the application, self-serve compliance-oriented data exports. So that'll keep you from receiving any support tickets asking for copies of the database, and they can self-serve when a data export is needed for whatever compliance reasons might come up. Now, Mattermost is a company, and they do have plans that you can buy that provide you enterprise level features and support beyond what the community edition can give you. So that's a combination of both features and the type of help desk support that you might choose to have if you decide to self-host this, but feel like you still need the safety net of a company to help you use it. So for example, if you were to self-host this on Platform.sh, you would first pay a typical hosting fee for the developer-oriented tools and hosting that Platform.sh offers. And then you would pay either nothing if you don't need the support, or you would pay one of these prices, these monthly prices that I'm showing on my screen, to Mattermost if you wanted enterprise support. So you've got a lot of flexibility about the price point that you would be able to get this with, whether you need a lot of support or a little support, and whether any of those enterprise features that you can investigate on the Mattermost website are in fact important to you. So that's the pricing structure. I have Slack's pricing in there again, just for comparison. And let's move straight on then to a tutorial about installing Mattermost on Platform.sh. So first of all, you have to know that every application that gets installed onto Platform.sh starts its life as a Git repository. This Git repository is now public on our Platform.sh -templates GitHub organization, and you can find it there. We can provide URLs for that as well later if you don't find it. And I'm going to show how easy it is to get this template installed on Platform.sh. In fact, I wrote a tutorial on that on our community.platform.sh site. If you look at the link there, or go to the community site and search for it, then you look for how to deploy Mattermost Slack alternative on Platform.sh. And it basically comes down to just a few steps. You need to register your Platform.sh account if you don't have one. I highly recommend you install the Platform.sh command line interface tool. We'll send all these important links in a follow-up mail to everybody who's attended. But yeah, those steps are the basic steps to get set up with hosting any project on Platform.sh, and we've got extensive documentation on that. But once you're set up on Platform.sh to host any project, then you can install Mattermost from the CLI with one command. It's in the tutorial. then the tutorial walks you through, let me just click through to that tutorial, see if that works here. Hey, there we go. And can somebody confirm that you see the tutorial now instead of the presentation still?
I still see the presentation.
Okay, well, that's a Zoom. I'm going to let people click through to the presentation. It's in the chat. The link to it's in the chat already for Zoom, so you can go to it there. And what you'll see is that it's a one-line command line tool to install it. Then really, you just go to the web interface of your Mattermost site. You create your first account, and you create a team. And from there, you can connect your desktop and mobile clients directly to the URL that you've just been given with your new project. And then you get something like the screenshot there on the right, where you've got an empty chat to invite all of the people in your organization to. And you can look at the Mattermost options for connecting that to an Active Directory or a single sign-on option. Although I believe those are definitely enterprise options, so you'll want to look into that. Okay, and that was Mattermost. So that's the first tool, Slack replacement. The next tool that I want to talk about with comparison to G Suite will be Nextcloud. Now, just as a point of reference, G Suite pricing would come into about 2,800 euros per year for a team of 50. Of course, I mean, that's a great value. Google offers simply world-class tools for email, document management, calendaring, presentations. If you could see the URL in this presentation, you can see that this is in fact a Google Docs presentation. So yes, Platform.sh is also using G Suite, but you might need to self-host an alternative. And the good news is I have one for you. It's called Nextcloud. And it's got a bunch of components that fulfill roles that are replacements for or similar to the functionality of G Suite. It's also got some features that you might not find there. And it's an extensive piece of software led by a German company. And it's open source, so you can get into the code. You can see it right on GitHub. You can see how it's developed. You can audit it. You can change it. You can extend it. It's pretty great. So there are different components, as I mentioned. There's Nextcloud Files, which provides you file sync and share capabilities. So you can check a document out of the repository and edit it locally and then upload it back and then release the lock. Or if you integrate with some of the other tools that Nextcloud works with, which I'll cover in a second, then you can have in-browser editing that's similar to Google Docs. Nextcloud offers a talk module that gives you like voice over IP calling, chat, and web meetings, kind of like the web meeting we're in right now, using Zoom, obviously. So this is also a Zoom replacement, Nextcloud. And it's got groupware such as calendaring, contact management, and email functionality. So let's look at a couple of those in more detail. So yeah, I just kind of covered all of those before I got to the slide. Let's move on then. So a note about the mail functionality. So I'm hoping that a lot of you are going to run off to Platform.sh after I give this demo and try installing Nextcloud, which will be great. But you'll need to know that there's a little bit more setup to Nextcloud than I'm going to be able to show you on this webinar. Because, for example, it doesn't provide an email server per se. It provides an email front end, a web front end to an email server. So you'll need to have an IMAP server that you'll configure in your Nextcloud to tie into. And then you'll get the functionality, for example, that you see in the screenshot. So it's got some really cool features, like it can like scan your mail and recognize travel itineraries and then add them to the calendar. That's really cool. It's got the unified inbox concept. So if you like hook up multiple email addresses, then you can look at them all in one account. These are all features that I recognize and enjoy from Gmail. It's also got calendaring, as I mentioned. So you can do meeting scheduling. So you can have like office hours and book your resources, and then have a web meeting like this Zoom that we're having. These are all features that are supported out of the box. This is a screenshot of the contact organization. You can track birthdays in case you've never, ever had a tool in your entire digital life that tries to track the birthdays of everybody of your contacts, so that you can get yet another birthday notification when somebody you've only met at a conference has a birthday. I just love that feature, as you can tell, irony aside. And these, the calendaring can tie into backend systems that otherwise do that as well. If you've got, again, Active Directory type systems that you need to integrate with. And you can sync your phone contacts and other device contacts with the Nextcloud contact repository, which is also always very nice, so that you can have a unified contact store. It's got something called Nextcloud Deck, which manages your work with others. So this is like a task manager. If you look at the small screenshot on the right, you've got these teal colored pluses that would add cards to the different swim lanes, which say to brainstorm, to do, and in progress. So it's got a, maybe a Trello or a Jira like feature there, which can be really useful. You can also make checklists, attach files to that. You'll see in the later part of this presentation, I actually cover a different dedicated tool called Restyaboard that also does stuff like that. And of course, Nextcloud is going to, give you a mobile app and a desktop app to install in case you don't want to work directly from the web interface in your browser, but it's also 100% web application based, so it does work if you just want to do browser-based work. Yeah, so in a similar way to Mattermost, Nextcloud is a company that has enterprise support plans. I'm just putting them here for reference because I gave you the 50 user price for gCloud, which you have to pay to use gCloud. The enterprise support for basic level for 50 users would be $1,900 a year for Nextcloud. But all of these plans do assume that you're self-hosting, which I'm going to also show you how to do on Platform.sh in a moment. So these are the different feature and support level tiers that the company Nextcloud offers, which you should definitely check out because those things can make or break your experience if you're trying to self-host a fairly complicated piece of enterprise-grade software. So here's the tutorial on installing Nextcloud onto Platform.sh. Again, it starts with a Git repository, which we call a template, which you'll find on github.com/platformsh-templates, along with all of our other templates if you want to browse and see what's available. And the steps are roughly the same as with Mattermost, and there is a tutorial, which I'm sure somebody will put into the chat on Zoom so you can browse it. But after you've set up your Platform.sh project, and installed the CLI and uploaded your SSH key and done the typical things that you need to get going with Platform.sh, then there's a one-line command that you run to install Nextcloud from the CLI. And then you're able to log into Nextcloud. There, it takes a little bit of reading the tutorial because the authentication credentials for your admin user are generated for you on installation, and you need the CLI to read your deploy log and get those credentials out. So do follow the steps in the tutorial carefully, and then you'll get those credentials in the deploy log, so you can do that first login, and then of course change your user password and username to your own, and you're ready to go. And then after that, there are integrations to set up. So you'll need integrations like the IMAP server. You'll need a file store, because Platform.sh isn't going to be really a suitable or cost-effective file store for something that replaces Google Docs or Google Drive or Dropbox. So you'll need an FTP server or Dropbox or Google Drive added to this as a service, and you can choose a service that also fulfills your self-hosted open source requirements if you need, but that's a different topic. You'll need to integrate that. And then if you want the in-browser document editing features, then you'll need to integrate one of the two recommended integrations that Nextcloud offers for enabling that. But you can see that in the Nextcloud documentation, and you'll figure that out on your own or with the help of their enterprise support. So that's Nextcloud. Let's look at another tool. The next tool replaces Trello, which, if you look at the price comparison, it's really interesting, because Trello actually costs more than Slack or G Suite for a team of 50 for a year. Draw your own conclusions on that. But I was a little bit surprised by that. So Trello is a SaaS. Trello is a Kanban style card management, task management. I love it. It's a beautiful tool. I've used it many projects, but it's a SaaS. And if you need to protect your own data and be in control of your own software, then you want Restyaboard. Restyaboard is a similar program that is self-hosted, where you create cards and tasks. You can display those cards in grids and lists and calendar views, Gantt charts. It's got a mobile app. It does an import from Trello and other similar systems if you want to move your already in the cloud data to your self-hosted application. And this is just a list of some of the features that it's got, right? So, and it's comparing itself to Trello directly here. So Restya does a good job of checking all of the green checkboxes over here, and it goes on. Always take a comparison like that with a grain of salt. It's a biased view on the world, of course. And if you look at Restyaboard's pricing structure, then these are they will offer you a hosted version of this if you would like to go with them for the hosting. And I don't know, for example, what limitations there are on that. I think this is like a SaaS offer on their part. Like they're offering you the software, but it's SaaS. So I don't know how much control you get and how much access you get. That's something to ask them. However, the good news is on Platform.sh, if you log into your Platform.sh console and start a new project, then you choose Use Template. You choose Restyaboard from the list of templates that we have. And this will actually be the case for Nextcloud and Mattermost as well soon. Those templates are so new that they just don't appear here yet, which is why I didn't show you this option. But for Restyaboard, it's been there for a while, and you can just search for Restyaboard, choose that, and you're ready to go with Restyaboard on Platform.sh, but you still have access to the code, and you're the master of all of your data. In a similar way, if you're doing online learning as a remote team now, for example, if you're a school, or maybe for conferences, or maybe for training new employees, then you're looking for a learning management system. And fortunately, there is a learning management system which is built on and based on Drupal, which we have in our repository catalog called Opigno. And it's got quizzes and courses, virtual classroom sessions. You can set up a graphical learning path that learners can follow. It's got all of the rich content authoring that you'd expect from an established CMS. And at the end of the course, you can grant a PDF certificate for anybody who completes. Now, if you get Opigno from Opigno themselves, then the prices start at $139 a month. And I don't know what limitations they have on users or students or page views, or what the tiers might be. You know, it says starting at $139 a month, and I don't know what it goes up to, but let's focus on what if you wanted to run that on Platform.sh. Once again, this is simply a matter of starting a new project on Platform.sh, going to the template repository, starting to search for Opigno, and there you've got it. You can click that, and you're online with your own learning management system where you are the master of your data. You can control the code. Platform.sh would support you perfectly in a development workflow, a CI/CD workflow around that if you wanted to modify it or extend it. And since it's a Drupal distribution, then you should be able to find developers, or maybe you have them in-house already who are familiar with Drupal and who could modify that to your tastes and needs. And Platform.sh is then the ideal tool for doing that type of development. So even though you're homebound, working from home, at your kitchen table, on your sofa, you'll still feel at work that you're connected and bound to all your colleagues as if you were there in person, because you've got the right tools and the right workflows for bringing everybody together in these times of crisis. Hope you feel like a tightly knit community. So at this point, that's the end of my presentation, but this is me graphically represented doing my social distancing and ready for any questions that anybody might have, either through chat, or you can turn on your mic and ask me that way too. All right. Not seeing any questions. Catherine, Chad, any questions that you guys have encountered?
I have
Okay.
one question. What is the cost for hosting these on Platform.sh?
Great, that's a great question. So let me just go briefly to the hosting platform pricing page, if I can. Hey, oh, I have to exit the presentation. Okay, that's turning out to be hard. Where'd it go? Oh no, I stopped screen sharing. Sorry, everybody. While I'm typing, I'm having a hard time talking, but the pricing starts at, for a production website, around $50 a month. So there's a pricing calculator here. Can you see my screen again, Catherine?
I can.
Okay, so there's a nice calculator here that helps you estimate between small, medium, large, extra large, 2x large, what you'd need, and the actual answer for what it would cost to host any of these applications on Platform.sh really depends on how much traffic and how many users you're going to bring to it. Now, they're not fixed levels. Like, we don't say, oh, you can have 100 Restyaboard users. It's not like that. It's more like, how much are you going to use this tool, and can it be run successfully at this size of server cluster? So each one of these represents a server cluster that has different resources. And if your app is not running fast enough on the standard, then you can upsize it to a medium and it will get more resource. So you also control what size to put it on, but any of these sizes can run any of those apps that I just showed. Right, next question. All right, so I don't see any more questions. Thank you everybody for attending. And if you do have questions, feel free to reach out later, send us a mail, go try these applications out on Platform.sh. If you run into any problems, let us know, and we're happy to help. Thanks, everybody.